Hey, fifth grade, this is Miss Gibson coming to you with your reading for today. So, we are on Friday, May 29th, reading packet. Make sure you have this link out, of course. Make sure you have the book link out. We are starting on page 100 for chapter 14. So, make sure you guys are on the bottom of page 100 so that you guys are ready to get into the chapter. And then, of course, having the stop and jot page out for today so you guys can go follow along with the video, get into the stop and jots as we are working. So make sure you are getting all three pieces out and pause the video and get them together. All right, so let's get into chapter 14 for today. So we are going to be reading chapter 14 of Bud Not Buddy, and we're going to be tracking the main character, of course, which is Bud, and we want to continue to learn from this main character as he interacts with other characters mainly in this chapter. So we need to track these interactions and what's going on within the setting. And we are going to be learning a lot more about Bud within the setting and himself as he progresses closer to the solution to the main conflict of the story. So make sure you guys are following along closely and go and going along with this video so we can all discuss together what's going on. So first, we're going to start the chapter together. We'll read the first three paragraphs, and as you're reading, think about why Bud keeps saying he's never eaten at a restaurant. Okay? And then after that, we're going to talk about it, and then you guys are going to get into some independent reading. So let's get to the bottom page 100. We're going to read the first few paragraphs together. Again, you're tracking for why he keeps saying he's never eaten at a restaurant. All right, chapter 14. When we got into the restaurant, I could see that it was someone's living room that they set about 10 card tables and some folding chairs in. Every table but one was filled, and there were 5 or 6 people standing in a doorway waiting to sit down. We said, "Excuse us," and walked right past. Then the smell of the place got into my nose, and I could tell why folks were lining up to get in. I closed my eyes and took in a big snort of air. It was like someone took an old pot and poured about 100 gallons of hot apple cider and 100 gallons of hot coffee into it, then stirred 8 or 9 sweet potato pies, crust and all, into that, then let 6 big steamy meatloafs float on top of all that, then threw in a couple of handfuls of smashed potatoes, then boiled the whole thing on high. This must be exactly how heaven feels. I could tell by the smell that Mr. Jimmy was telling the truth when he said this was the best restaurant in Grand Rapids. Shucks, I've never eaten in one before, but I say this was the best restaurant in the world. I opened my eyes because the smell was starting to get me dizzy. Now, why do you guys think Bud keeps like reiterating here that he's never eaten in a restaurant before? What is the meaning behind him saying it? Right. When he keeps saying this over and over, so from chapter 13 to now to chapter 14, is basically like giving us the bigger picture of Bud as a character and that he doesn't really have much in his life. So he keeps saying, I've never eaten in one before, but I say this is the best restaurant in the world. Like he's experiencing something new for the first time. And you could tell like he was basically kind of on the poor side to never eat in a restaurant ever in his life, and that says a lot about our character right now as we're watching him grow. All right. So now you guys are going to get into the remainder of 101, and you're going to stop at the end of page 103. So 102, 103, stopping at the end of page 103. You guys are going to independently read, and then you're going to get into the first stop and jot of comparing and contrasting Bud's first interactions from Hermione Calloway to Miss Thomas. So this may take you going back to the previous chapter to do this comparison from how Miss Thomas treats him on their first interaction compared to how Hermione Calloway treats them on his first interaction. So go ahead and get into reading to the bottom of page 103, getting into that first stop and jot here in the Google form, and then come back to the video when you are done. So go ahead and pause the video and get started. All right, so welcome back from trying out the first stop and job, which is compare and contrast Bud's first interaction from Hermie E. Calloway to Miss Thomas. So, as you guys read, what was going on with Miss Thomas and how was she treating Bud? She was acting very concerned about Bud and everything that was going on with the way he physically looks to the way that he was acting. And you could tell that she was really trying to care about his well being as if, like, she was his mom. Like, as soon as she met him, she made sure to look at him real close. So, like, on top page 102, she goes, "Uh oh." I twisted up my face to get ready for a kiss, but instead she looked real close at me and said, "What's this, baby?" She rubbed her fingers over a couple stink spots that I had been scratching. For a second, I was going to tell her they were vampire bites, but something told me to tell the truth this time. I said, "That's just some hornet stings, ma'am." I got up when the Amoses locked me in their shed. It was her turn to twist her face up. When who locked you in what shed? Locked you up in what shed? So she's like asking these questions, trying to figure out why he looks the way he looks and his physical features right now. Like why is he cut up? Why does he have these bug bites? And she's She's very concerned about his well-being compared to how Herman E. Calloway was when he really didn't care to even talk to him because as soon as Bud came in, he accused him of being his father. So realize like this big difference right here that Herman E. Calloway barely cared to even get to know him or why he's presented the way he is. And Miss Thomas is very concerned about Bud's well-being and making sure that he's fed and make sure that the wounds are getting patched up because right now he looks like he just looks very very raggedy at this moment. Okay, all right. So now you guys are going to continue reading on independently, pages 104 to 106 and stop after the paragraph ending with, "I bet you're sick and tired of answering people's questions, aren't you?" So I'm going to show you where this is at. So you're going to read page 104, 1, page 105, 106. So once you get to page 106, this is where you're going to stop after this paragraph. Okay, so that's a look like in the beginning, like a third way down the page. Stop after this paragraph. As you are reading, we're going to begin to get into Bud's feelings at this moment and need to show our understanding of why his feelings begin to shift about meeting Hermione Calloway. So this comes with the setting that they're now in. It's building on how he first originally met Hermione Calloway, how he was very eager to meet him. And then there may have been a shift in how he feels about meeting him now. So you guys are going to read again pages 104 to 106, stopping after this paragraph, and then you're going to get into the second stop and jot of why is Bud beginning to doubt himself on sharing why Herman E. Calloway is his father. So go ahead and pause the video and get started. All right, welcome back from trying out stop and jot number 2. So, in this moment, this question is asking us why is Bud beginning to doubt himself on sharing why Herman E. Calloway is his father. So, let's get into the text and find out what happened here. So, how does this conversation end with him and Miss Thomas? She is now asking him questions about why he thinks that Herman E. Calloway is his dad. So, it gets to here on the bottom of page 105. And then Miss Thomas begins the conversation again with Bud. I've got to let you know that I'm pretty sure that there's just no way that Mr. C is your father. Tell me what gave you the idea he is. Bud goes on with, "My mother did, ma'am." Miss Thomas looked over at Mr. Jimmy real quick, then said, "Sweetheart, do you know a whole lot of people all over the state know Mr. C? Do you know he's pretty famous?" "No, ma'am." "Oh, well, you know what I think? I think maybe your mother heard him on the radio radio or heard somebody talking about him or saw the band somewhere or told you that Mr. C reminded her of your father and you misunderstood what she meant. Isn't that possible? So right here, they're still doubting that Hermione Calloway is Bud's father. They keep questioning him why he keeps thinking that. And then this is when the doubts come in for Bud because he just feels like people aren't believing him. So why should he keep telling his story now? Because no one's actually going to believe that that's his father. It goes on to say, uh-oh, it was going to be hard to explain to Miss Thomas about Mighty Maples and hints from flyers. As long as I kept Hermie Calloway being my father to myself, the whole thing made real good sense. But as soon as I tried to tell other folks about it, it seemed like maybe it was something some stupid kid had dreamed up, like it was wishing and hoping instead of something true and real. So Bud is now just contemplating whether he should even believe his own idea anymore because of how people are questioning him every single time he has to keep saying the story over and over again, and he doesn't want to tell them about the flyers. Okay, now we are going to finish the chapter together, and then you guys are going to get into the last stop and jot. So you guys will show your understanding of how Bud's perception of life may have changed. So perception of life is how he views life from before he came to meet Hermione Calloway and Miss Thomas and to before. So he's experiencing so many new pieces to life, like a new restaurant and the way people are among the new interactions. So this stop and jot leads into our teaching point of today about how Bud is progressing as a character in the book through new interactions. So we're going to again finish the chapter together, and then you guys are going to do the last stop and jot of what can the reader infer about Bud's feelings at the end of the chapter. So what are we getting from Bud's feelings at the end of the chapter? Let's get to reading the rest of the chapter together. So we should be on page 106, and we're starting right here where it says, I said, yes, ma'am, I am. Make sure you're there. Okay. I said, yes, ma'am, I am, but I did notice that she'd say tomorrow. That might mean that they weren't going to try to send me back to Flint anyway. Flint right away. Miss Tyler said, Miss Thomas, and I set a plate in front of her, then said, Mr. Jimmy, and gave him some food too. Then said, steady, and put his plate down so that it rattled a little. Then said, and finally, the young gentleman put a plate crammed with food in front of me. It was the best meal I'd ever had, and when it was done, Miss Tyler brought me a dessert she called "on the house." It was a piece of warm sweet potato pie with some white fluffy stuff called whipped cream swapped all over the top of it. After I shoved the last crumbs of pie in my mouth and scraped up the little last dribbles of whipped cream, I looked around at the people at my table and couldn't help breaking out in a smile. I didn't see it before, but now that I looked, I could tell that Miss Thomas must be the most beautiful woman in the world. When she talked, she moved her hands and fingers around, and the lights from the ceiling and from the little candle on the table would bounce off of all of them diamonds and spark up in your eye and make you feel like you'd been hit with some kind of magic fairy dust. Then you couldn't help but smile. All the while she'd hum too, but hum doesn't seem like it's the right word for what she was doing. Most times I'd heard humming before. It was just an excuse for not being able to sing or something people do if they didn't know the words to a song. Uh-uh. That doesn't sound that doesn't fit the sounds Miss Thomas was making. You couldn't help but look up and wonder if this was a real human being that was making these sounds. What her humming reminded me most of was that feeling you get when you walk barefoot on a railroad track, and for a long time before you can see it, you can feel the train coming right through the bottoms of your feet. Her humming started slow and easy at first, but then just like you, could feel the could feel that train shaking from somewhere far off. After a while, Miss Thomas's humming made you feel like something big and strong was passing right by you, and everything on you was getting rattly and shaky and about to get shook loose. It made you want to drop your fork and grab hold of something solid. From hearing just this little bit of humming, I could understand why Mr. Jimmy didn't call her a singer. Singer wasn't a big enough word to take in the kind of music that was jumping out of Miss Thomas's chest. And I didn't notice before how funny Mr. Jimmy was. The stories he was telling about traveling around the country with Hermione Calloway had us all laughing so much that even the nosy people at all the tables near ours quit eating and were busting their guts and throwing their 2 cents into the story. The only table that was quiet was where the dusky devastators were sitting. It seemed like Hermione Calloway could make it so you just wanted to sit and wash your hands with a sad look on your face. And I hadn't noticed before how nice Steady Eddie was either. He walked out of the side of the, he talked out of the side of his mouth and kept his eyes kind of blinked halfway down, especially when Miss Tyler would come to our table to see if we were all right, which she did a lot. And he was the first person I'd ever seen who could eat and talk and laugh and drink and sneeze whilst keeping a toothpick dangling out of his mouth. No matter what he do, that toothpick always stayed dancing just below his mustache. And Steady Eddie took his time to show me how to hold my lips and how to put my fingers like I was really playing a pretend saxophone. I'm not sure when it happened, if it was when I was scraping up the last little drops of melted whipped cream, or if it was when Miss Thomas's fingers got to flinging all that magic fairy dust. But sometime whilst I was sitting in the sweet pea, another seed got to sprouting. Sometime in that smells like heaven place, another mighty maple started digging down its roots and grabbing hold. One second I was laughing my head off, and the next second I was feeling very surprised because something hit me just as hard as Snaggletooth McNevin had smacked Hermione Calloway. All of a sudden, I knew that of all the places in the world that I'd ever been in, this was the one. That of all the people I'd ever met, these were the ones. This was where I was supposed to be. And Hermione Calloway could kiss my wrist if he thought he was going to scare me out of this. It was going to take more than a grouchy old bald headed guy with a tremendous belly to run me out of here. I was smiling and laughing and busting my guts so much that I got carried away, and some rusty old valve squeaked open to me, then whoop, zoop, sloop. Tears started jumping out of my eyes so hard that I had to cover my face with the big red and white napkin that was on the table. I hadn't been this embarrassed since I woke up and found Mrs. Sleep looking at my legs. I could tell that everyone in the sweet pea had stopped laughing and talking and had started looking at me, but I still couldn't quit bawling. Mama used to tell me I'd only get one chance to make a first impression, and it looked like I was blowing it with the dusky devastators of the depression. Shucks. Finally, I had to put my face and my arms on top of the table and put the napkin over my head like it was a little blanket, cause try as hard as I wanted, it didn't look like I was gonna get this doggone valve closed anytime soon. I felt Miss Thomas's hand come up under the napkin and rub real soft and slow back and forth over my head. She pulled me out of the chair into her lap and wrapped her arms around me and bounced me up and down on her knee. Dangy. I never had have any kind of reputation with the band now. The only thing I could do was hang on to the napkin and try to make it so folks wouldn't notice how wet my face was. She said, so quiet that I was the only one who could hear it. Okay, baby, okay. I know, sweetheart, I know. Then she started humming again, and with my ear mashed up against her chest, it felt like all my bones and muscles quit doing their jobs. It felt like something as big as a steam locomotive engine was chugging right past my ear. I wasn't sure if it was her lips or her hand, but something whispered to me in a language that I didn't have any trouble understanding. It said, go ahead and cry, bud. You're home. Okay, guys. We just finished chapter 14, and you guys now can get into that final stop and judge. What can the reader infer about Bud's feelings at the end of the chapter? So, what are we getting from Bud's feelings, and what are we understanding about his feelings at the end of the chapter? Go ahead over to the last stop and jot and begin. All right, so you guys just came back from answering the last stop and job today of what can the reader infer about Bud's feelings at the end of the chapter. So, as we can tell, Bud was enjoying himself so much and actually taking everything in that you can tell that he's now feeling overwhelmed with the happiness that's around him. He's being fed. He's listening to amazing music. He's watching people laugh, eat, and talk together. And for once in his life, he actually feels comfortable where he's at. Miss Thomas says, "Go ahead and cry, Bud, you're home." So this is like giving into the notion that Bud is now where he should be, and he doesn't have to put up this like facade that he's like a grown boy just on the lam just trying to find his father. Like he can actually be a kid in this moment and just let all of the days that he just had just wash away from him with his tears. So right now we can affirm that he's very emotional because he's finally at a place that he's feeling comfortable and cared for and loved. To previous places that he didn't have he never felt like this after his mom had passed. So this is a big step for Bud in showing that he can finally be comfortable within himself and where he's at instead of putting up like um some type of like straight poker face that he just wants to get the job done and then leave. So this is what can we can infer about his feelings and emotions. So he's very happy to be there. He's finally feeling cared for and loved by the people around him, and he hasn't felt like this in a while. So it's the he opened up. He let the valve open up for his tears. That rusty old valve squeaked open in me, and then after that, the tears started coming out because he never felt this way before in a while. All right. So you guys are now done with the reading for today. The exit ticket secret code for today is Converse, Converse. So go ahead and get started on that exit ticket for today. Make sure you are using the text for your exit ticket. There should be no reason why we are getting all of them wrong. You guys should be getting hundreds across the board. You can always refer back to the text when you're doing the exit ticket. So make sure you're doing that. All right. And have a great Friday and a lovely weekend. Bye.